All right. Matt, how's it going? You there?
I am here, Josh. How are you?
I got to say, I'm glad that I was on mute the last few minutes because I was singing. I'll tell you. I don't know about you.
Well, you would have heard me singing, but you heard my playlist instead. So excited to start this networking in a pandemic webinar.
Woohoo! All right. Thank you all so much for being here. As you can see, it's about 5 after right now. We just wanted to give an extra few minutes to let a number of people join. We still have several others who are registered, but I'll make sure to let them in as they come in. For all of you who are here, thank you so much for being here. The next hour, we plan for this to be very engaging, very enjoyable, and hopefully you'll get some really good takeaways as far as networking and staying connected with your network and with those in the industry during this time where we are not able to meet in person, but hopefully we'll be able to in the near future.
Yes, and speaking of networking, some of you have already taken this upon yourselves, and I love it. Go ahead and put your name in the chat or say hello in the chat, and just to kind of let us know that you're here. We'd love to see everybody put a little message in there. So if you don't know us, my name is Matt Heller. I'm the founder of Performance Optimist Consulting and also the co-host of the AttractionPros podcast.
All right. And I'm Josh Liebman. I am the other co-host of the AttractionPros podcast, and I'm the founder of Backlooper.
Fantastic. So we have been talking to quite a few people over the last many months, and this topic of networking often comes up because many of us were going to go to Orlando for IAPA, or we're going to go to the WWA show, or any of these conferences where we were going to be able to see people in person, and we're just not able to do that this year. So Josh and I thought it'd be kind of fun and hopefully useful to talk a little bit about how we can continue to network even though we're not going to be seeing everybody. So we're going to break this content down into 3 specific areas. We're going to talk about finding your voice. That's going to be a big thing when it comes to kind of, projecting who you are, using your voice. So once you've found that voice, figuring out how to use it best. And then one of the things that is really important in any kind of network is amplifying other people's voices. And we'll get into all that as we go. So Josh, are you ready to kick it off?
I am. And one quick note too, we know there have been so many webinars over the last several months. You've probably attended 1,000 maybe. We want this to be as interactive and engaging. Obviously, it's about networking, so we want to practice what we preach a little bit. So if you have any questions or comments that come up throughout the course of the webinar, feel free to use the chat feature. As we know, many people have become acquainted with the chat feature already by introducing themselves. Thank you so much for everyone who's done that. We know it can be very easy to minimize the window and go check your emails or look on social media or anything like that. We won't know if you're doing that or not, obviously, but we're going to try to keep it fresh and moving along. And we anticipate that this hour is going to go by very quickly. So should we get started with the first component of what we're going to talk about today, and that is find your voice?
Bring it.
All right. So finding your voice. Now, for this component here, we've also broken this down into, I guess, 3 sub-bullets or subcategories, if you will. And the first really has to do with who are you and what is your personal brand, and really talk about what exactly does that mean in terms of networking or in terms of trying to maybe build up your reputation within the industry or thought leadership or anything like that. So, for example, Matt, what would you say your personal brand is, or what do you strive to communicate that Matt Heller is all about?
My love of dogs.
Gotcha. Obviously.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
And what would be secondary?
The things that we talk about on the podcast a lot: leadership and employee engagement.
Right. And I got to say, whenever I think of you, I think of your dog, Otis, but I also think of leadership and employee engagement. And the reverse of that is true too. If I think of leadership and employee engagement and employee development, I think of Matt Heller. You own that space in my mind with what you are and your personal brand. And I feel like you've done that very intentionally as well.
Well, thank you. And I kind of hope so, since we, chat, like every week and sometimes multiple times a week. But, I think it really comes from being authentic. And when you talk about, who you are and what your personal brand is, I think we have to start with, who are you authentically, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that really drive you? What are the things that you are passionate about? And we're going to talk about passion in just a little bit, but what are those things that, you really get excited about? And when I think about the attractions industry specifically, and I think about where I have seen a lot of growth and where I think I can help other people, it is through leadership. It is through employee engagement. And so when I talk about my personal brand or my voice, a lot of times that's what you're going to hear me talk about, right? And I think when you have a consistent voice, and we'll talk more about in a little bit how it doesn't have to be 24/7, but when you have a consistent voice and a consistent message and people know what to get from you, then you've kind of got your personal brand set.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the kind of the topic of mind share that really comes to mind as far as what's the kind of the dominant space that you own. And like you said, it's about finding that authentic voice, which is really kind of what the next bullet point here talks about. And that's, I know there aren't actually bullet points, but the next line here about combining your expertise with your passion. So usually finding your voice can be a very easy exercise and something that you can come up with relatively simply or relatively naturally. But sometimes maybe you might say, well, I'm passionate about so many things. Like, yeah, I know you talk about leadership development and employee engagement, but you are passionate about Otis, your dog. You're passionate about Rush, and drumming. I know that you've got a lot of your interests. But from a professional standpoint, when I think about your expertise, I think of leadership development and employee engagement. And I know that you're not just an expert at those, but you are incredibly passionate and devoted about that as well.
I feel really lucky that I've been able to combine those two things. And I think sometimes people get into roles and jobs where they get really good at certain things, but it may not be their passion. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're in a time right now where a lot of people have unfortunately been laid off, or they're furloughed, or, for whatever reason, they find themselves unemployed. And this is actually a really good time to think about, okay, what are those things you're good at? What are those things you're really passionate about? And where do those things line up? Right? Because if you're thinking about what your next step might be, you're also thinking about, who you can connect with and how you can get your personal brand out there. Well, if you combine what you're really good at, and let's say it's ride design, right? Maybe you're really good at ride design, and maybe you're really passionate about ride design in a specific type of facility, right? Maybe that's where your niche is. So if that's where you are, then that's really important to know, right? Not everybody knows that. So it's really important, if you're trying to find your voice and what that's going to sound like and look like to other people, to kind of take stock of that, take a little time to really think about what that is for you specifically, you personally.
Yeah, totally. And then I think that the final component of this is, you might have a broad interest in a large topic, right? But think about what can you do to go deeper into that niche? And some people say the riches are in the niches. And I believe that the deeper the niche, the better. So for instance, if let's say, your personal brand, you want it to be about marketing, or you want it to be about engineering, or you want it to be about operations. These are all great topics, and there's ample opportunity, I would say, for thought leadership in each one of them, or for mind share in each one of them. But if you really want to have more of a commanding hold on any particular area of that, I say go deeper. And what are some ways you can layer on more, I would say, parameters to that? So for instance, I like to think guest experience is what I strive for my personal brand. My expertise, my background, in the industry, I've developed a lot of, knowledge around that, a lot of interest in studying it, and I'm incredibly passionate about it as well. If we were to now go a little bit further and say, okay, guest experience. Well, first of all, within the theme parks and attractions industry is specifically, I'm not actively working with, hotels or restaurants or other areas of hospitality because I want to be, specifically very much in the attractions world. And then particularly guest complaints is an area that I'm really passionate about and also feel that I've got a lot of great expertise in being able to help others resolve. So being able to go even deeper there, if someone is thinking about guest complaints as it relates to the overall experience in the attractions industry, I want to be the one they think of in terms of, okay, what can we do to maybe solve this problem or gain more insights on, or anything from that standpoint.
Josh, I often think of you when I have something to complain about.
Hopefully it's not about me.
Right now. But I think you're absolutely right. And when you kind of develop that deeper niche, that means that you are going, what's the phrase? Instead of going, an inch deep and a mile wide, you're going a mile deep, in an inch wide. So you're getting so much more insight into that. And it's kind of a cyclical process, right? As you start to kind of think about that road you're going down, as you look to more resources and you find other things that you can, develop that skill or that knowledge about, you have that many more resources to do so. And then the knowledge just kind of grows and grows and grows. And let's look at this from a bigger picture standpoint. Now you become that much more valuable to someone else because you have that deep, deep knowledge about that particular topic. Right. I think one of the other things, around finding your voice is where do we voice this voice, right? And I think when we look at like LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, so many things are going on with social right now. Yes, you want to have your voice out there on LinkedIn. You absolutely want to have that as as updated as possible. At the same time, you don't want to spend all your time just updating your LinkedIn profile. You don't want to spend all your time redoing your resume because all you're ever going to do is redo your resume and update your LinkedIn profile. That is not the be all end all of your voice. As you're going to see in just a little bit when we talk about using your voice, now we figure out, okay, if we found it, make sure your LinkedIn profile reflects that. Make sure your resume reflects that. But then we got to figure out how to use it beyond those two areas so that we can truly network.
Yeah. And I feel like, when you're updating your LinkedIn profile or you're updating your resume or, even your Facebook profile or Twitter bio, it feels like you are being productive when in actuality, you're really just being busy, right? So this is one of the things where it's not necessarily an entire set it and forget it type of thing. But when it comes to networking in and of itself is an ongoing, continually moving process. Updating your LinkedIn profile or any similar type of activity should be that event that happens first at the beginning, or maybe right now, or right now, maybe you want to go review what your LinkedIn profile reflects as far as your personal brand, and then really should only be updated if anything were to change or if there's any way to actually improve it. Now it's about, okay, well, what are we doing with, I've got this landing page for myself. I've got my personal kind of avatar of who I am, but now actually taking that voice and being able to use that and broadcast that out to whether it's driving people to your LinkedIn profile or if somebody stumbles upon it, that they now know who you are. But just updating it in and of itself, you can't expect people to immediately find you and reach out to you to hire you or want to network with you or chat more. It'll probably happen on occasion. And I've noticed, and we can talk about this too, a lot of LinkedIn connection requests that have been happening over the last 7 months, I would say, are not as natural, not as fitting, just because of I would say poor networking strategies, and we can talk about that in the next section. But yeah, the act of updating your LinkedIn profile should be something that's not an ongoing activity, but something that you do, and now we've set it, and now we're gonna move on to the next step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we kind of bring this find your voice piece to just a little bit of a conclusion, and we're going to move on to the next piece, I want you to all think about 3 words. And those 3 words can be things that maybe describe your personal brand. Maybe they describe you. They describe something that you're aspiring to. I went through a exercise a number of years ago, and I had a whole bunch of words, and we got it down to three specific words. And for me, those words were support, performance, and fire. And I'll tell you the fire story later if you want to hear about it. But those three words are things that I keep coming back to that, kind of help drive me and help me understand my own personal brand. So that's kind of what I would like you to think about as we get out of this part is, what are those three words for you? You may already know them right now. You may have to think about this, but just think about what those three words might be for you.
Totally. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I know that fire story, so
I
we
don't know
might
if
want
I
to make
told
sure
you that.
we have some time for it later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So should we move on to the next step?
Let's do it.
All right. So once you have found your voice, now we want to talk about using your voice. And so this also has three sub steps to it as well. So the first is about sharing your message where your audience is listening. And I know we've talked about LinkedIn a lot, and that's probably, I would say, a good anchor, right? A good default. If you've got a message, share it on LinkedIn. It's definitely where you want to be growing your professional network, but it shouldn't be, or shouldn't necessarily be, the only channel that you're on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have to sort of judge along the way. Like if you've got a Facebook profile and maybe that's more your friends and maybe that's not necessarily where you're going to find professional connections, although sometimes it might be, right? So don't necessarily shy away from that. LinkedIn is kind of the go-to, more professional. Twitter can be used for all different kinds of things, but think about where those folks are, and you may do a little bit of A/B testing. Like if you post something that you think is really your voice and you think people are going to react to it, you post the same thing on Facebook and you post the same thing on LinkedIn. See where you get more interaction. See what kind of interaction you get with that. If it's on Facebook and your mom and dad like it, great, right? If you get no other interaction from that, maybe that's not where your audience is. If you do the same thing on LinkedIn and you get all kinds of interaction and people talking about it, then that's probably where that audience is listening. So as you're using your voice, figure out, and it's going to take a little trial and error, but figure out where you can, share those different things where you're going to actually be speaking to people who are ready to listen.
I love that idea of A/B testing. And because you think of that like a marketing strategy, and it often sounds really complex. But if we're talking about, okay, I've got a message, or maybe I've got an article that I read that I want to comment on, this A/B testing idea is so great, really, for a couple of reasons. One, it's completely free to post on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even Instagram all at the same time, right? We use Hootsuite for AttractionPros. Those posts go out, they're on all channels all at once. So it's efficient. And not only is it not going to cost you anything, but you really don't run the risk of damaging your brand if, let's say, I post something on Facebook and it just doesn't get engagement. Well, now I know, okay, I'm going to dial back my industry related posts on Facebook because it's mostly just my family, and maybe they'll like it because they want to support me. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But if I post it on LinkedIn, now people are sending me private messages. Now people actually want to talk more about it. I mean, just an example, maybe it's not guaranteed, but maybe there's more of a likelihood of another channel being your preferred method for communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll find too, and I found this just sort of organically, that there's different voices that I use almost on different channels. Like I find myself being or thinking I'm funnier on Twitter than anywhere else, and I don't know why. But that just sort of, I feel like that's okay, and I get some good reaction from it. So think about where those people are. And I don't want you to think that you have to go out and find a new audience. You probably already have an audience, even if you only have, a couple of people that you're connected to on LinkedIn. Maybe it's 50 people or 100 people. Don't worry about trying to be, connected to thousands and thousands of people. It's more about the quality of the connections that you can use to connect with and build relationships with than it is necessarily about having thousands of followers, especially when it comes to networking, because networking is all about relationships. It's all about who and we'll talk about amplifying their voice a little bit later. But, when you talk about sharing your message, you want it to be to people that are are readily accepting of that message, or maybe they don't know quite yet that they're accepting of it, but you've kind of tickled their interest bone a little bit, and they're like, oh, what's this Josh guy talking about? Guest experience, guest compliment, or guest complaints? Man, I need some help with that, right? So now they've got a line to Josh, and they can go find out more.
Totally. Yeah. And so the second point here is about being a thought leader, not a salesperson. And I think, even to clarify, what that means, or even what we refer to as a salesperson, doesn't necessarily need to be someone who is in sales. This could be if, you are looking for a new job, or if you are looking for clients, or just if you're, looking to make connections with other people, or maybe you're looking, to make a deal of some sort, or any or all of the above. We all feel like we're selling all the time when we want people, when we're promoting our brand, when we want to post something that is going to get people to maybe think of us from the, the personal brand or the niche that we've developed. And, sometimes we take on that salesperson mentality of maybe click on this link. It doesn't necessarily even need to be buy this or work with me or hire me. It can be any one of those. But the thought leadership aspect of it, if someone is scrolling and they see your post, regardless of which channel it's on, and they stop and they think about what it is that you're talking about, not just seeing that you are trying to get people to click on a link or take some sort of action related to you, it's going to be much more impactful. One of the things that I love that actually LinkedIn did very recently is they expanded out their like options. I know Facebook did this a while back, but now on LinkedIn, you can applause and there's the light bulb like on it. I love that. So that or the thinker one, right?
Yeah.
So think about, if you are posting, in particular, we'll say LinkedIn for this example, what will get people to not just read the post or like the post, but have it be that light bulb moment of something that you've posted. So then you're really adding value, and you're tying in your personal brand with the value that you're delivering to your network.
And I would also say, don't get intimidated by the term thought leader. A lot of people say, I'm a thought leader, and they put that in their profile and everything. And it's very high and mighty, hoity toity, but it really
don't put
just
thought leader in your profile.
But it really just means that you have thoughts, and everybody has thoughts. Everybody has a unique perspective, a hot take, if you will. So it's sometimes scary to put something out there that you think other people aren't going to identify with, or other people are going to disagree with. Honestly, if someone disagrees with you, that's okay. Not in the political way, we won't go there, but just in general, if you're talking about, the best cleaner to use on your attractions, or, some other aspect of business where you're saying, hey, this is what I think, this is what I've seen. Somebody else may say, well, I've seen something different. Great. Now we're in a discussion. And guess what? Now you get to see their viewpoint, and you get to understand where they're coming from. And boom, if you've got an open mind, you might learn something as well. So to me, that's what more of a thought leader is about, is being bold enough to share something that maybe somebody else doesn't, or you don't think somebody else is going to agree with, or you don't know how they're going to take it. But if you can put it out there in a way that makes them think, I think that's fantastic. And speaking of using your voice, I want to touch on something that just recently happened, starting to happen in the comments box, in the chat box, is that people are starting to share their LinkedIn profiles. And I love that. So please feel free. If you'd like to share your LinkedIn profile, we will be publishing the contents from the chat. So go ahead and not with everybody, but everybody that's on the call. So go ahead and share your LinkedIn if you'd like in there, your contact information. This is how you use your voice. One of the things I was going to talk about was being on things like this and actually participating. So thank you everybody who put in a hello and, coming from this place and that place. I love that. Andy Sharp talked about, drumming. Hey, he's a percussionist as well. So right now I feel more of a connection to Andy because he used his voice. And now here we got a lot of profiles coming in. So again, this is how you use your voice to get that out there without being salesy. And the other thing I wanted to say about this really quick is, when people put out there their contact information and they say, contact us if you have questions. Use it. Don't be afraid, right? Use your voice to contact them and just reach out and say, hey, I love that thing that you did, or, that article that you posted was fantastic. It really spoke to me in this particular way. That's a great way to, again, kind of use your voice to help get yourself out there so that, people will think of you in other situations.
Totally. Yeah. So the last component of this before we move on to the last section is stay in your lane, and then in parentheses, usually.
Usually.
And before this recording started, we were running through this, and Matt and I, we started talking about this. Honestly, I almost feel like we could do the entire webinar on what stay in your lane usually means. But to give just kind of a quick overarching view, if you've defined your personal brand and you've identified your niche, you want to make sure that you keep on with that niche and you don't go far outside of that when maybe demonstrating expertise or demonstrating thought leadership. And so, for instance, Matt, your thought leadership, your personal brand is leadership, employee development. And you said that early on in the pandemic, someone asked you about the best cleaning supplies to use, right? And
Yes.
that would be a different lane, right? If you now started posting, even if maybe you've got a recommendation or you've got an idea, you're not going to transform all of your posts, your messages, social media, email marketing, whatever it is, to say this is the best. I recommend these cleaning tools, and now start a new YouTube channel where you're comparing one to another, not because it wouldn't be valuable information, but because that's not your thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think about how much time that takes, right? We're all time starved right now. When we think about networking, we want to get the most out of it. And yes, it is a long game, but at the same time, you want to maximize the time that you're spending doing it. So if I had spent all that time researching cleaners, number one, I wouldn't have the opportunity to test them all. So what do I know, right? So it's much more advantageous for me to say, I know there's other experts out there about that. That's okay. I'm going to stay in my lane. If somebody needs to know, what's the best way to, interact with your team, when they're furloughed, let me know. I'm happy to brainstorm, right? Somebody says, hey, I have a person that doesn't want to come back to work because they're not feeling safe. Okay, let's talk about that. I'm happy to. But if you say, what's the best cleaner to use? I'm going to say, there's other resources out there. That's not something I can help you with. But sometimes it can be hard to say, that's not something I can help you with, but it's also very freeing. It's very liberating, because then you're like, oh, I got to research these cleaners and I don't have the first clue about these cleaners, right? So in some cases, it's good to really know your lane to stay in it. But Josh, there's also sometimes when you get out of your lane a little bit.
Right. And here's where the usually component comes in. And, you want to stay in your lane, for a few reasons. One, you don't want to give misinformation of something that maybe you're not an expert on or not a thought leader on. You also don't want to confuse your audience or your network to I would say, dilute your personal brand. So if you're talking about leadership and employee engagement, you're probably not going to talk about, cleaning supplies from a thought leadership standpoint, because that's not what you want people to think of when they think of you, or you don't want them to think of you when they think of what are the best cleaning supplies. But so you don't want to confuse your audience or confuse your network. But the usually is really to say that you shouldn't also be locked inside a box specifically. So sometimes I will extend out a little bit if it is something that maybe is kind of this halo effect of guest experience, or maybe it's something that is more related broader to the theme park industry. Or there's also, I would say, the humanization component of it as well. And this doesn't only apply to Facebook or Twitter, but even when you're on LinkedIn, scrolling through a lot of, professional or industry specific posts, I really like when I stop and I see Matt has posted a picture of his dog on LinkedIn, right? It's not in his lane, but it also doesn't confuse his audience as well, of saying, oh, he must be a dog walker or a breeder, or I don't know, or dog food salesman, I don't know, whatever it is, that it's not going to, it's gone out of your lane for the purpose of showing your actual personal elements of your personal brand.
And that's where I think we have to really remember that no matter what platform we're talking about, and we are talking a lot about platforms right now because that's where a lot of the interaction is coming from, but it's also social media. So people do want to get to know you as a person. They want to get to know you beyond your LinkedIn profile. And when you think about the people that you like to do business with most, it's probably someone that you like. Right? It's probably someone that you know, someone that you trust. And those things don't come from, a LinkedIn profile specifically. That can be an avenue, that can be a portal to finding out more about you. But ultimately, that's not how you build the relationships. So
Right.
as we bring this piece together, the using your voice, if you had those 3 words that we talked about from the finding your voice, if you thought of 3 words, or heck, even 1 word that you thought described you, throw that in the chat box. We'd love to see what that is. If you have all 3, great. If you only have 1, that's okay too. But go ahead and put those in the chat box, and we'd love to see them. I think Josh is doing it right now. Awesome. Seeing a lot of those come in. Excellent. Excellent. Josh, is it time to move on to the next
I
section?
think it is, but don't let that stop you if you're
No,
still
please
typing
do.
or you're thinking about the 3 words or word phrases. We've got some great ones coming in here. But yes, we will move on. So we've found our voice and we use our voice. Shouldn't that be all? Why would there
No,
be anything else for
because
this? Not.
networking is not about you.
It's not. So let's talk about amplifying other voices. And this is a really, I think it's really cool to be able to talk about this from the component of networking, because like you said, networking is not about you. You will benefit from it in the long run. And that's, I think, one of the crucial things. I know we've mentioned it, a few times here, but networking is not necessarily about short-term gains. It's about long-term development with the connections that you are making. So with that, the first is about sharing other people's content. So if we use LinkedIn, for example, don't just post without scrolling and see what other people are sharing. Go through, look at what those in your network are posting. Maybe it is about themselves. Maybe they're sharing or amplifying other voices as well. Maybe it's someone who just completed a very cool project with a client, or maybe with a partner or a vendor, and they're very proud of the work that they now have that now is open in their park or their client's park. And it's something that you can now join in their excitement for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that, especially at this time, it's interesting how many people are actually putting out jobs that are available right now. So that's what I've been doing. I've tried to amplify other people's content. Like if somebody says, "Hey, we've got this job available," I'm going to throw that out to my network. And a couple of people have actually gotten jobs because of that. So that's super, super exciting. But more exciting, thank you. But more exciting than that is that this all still fits with my voice. Because I'm all about employee development and I love the attractions industry. So if I'm able to share those things, then it's not about me. I'm just saying, let's put this out there so somebody else can benefit. And I think that's part of the mindset around sharing other people's content. If you find something that you think is really cool, other people are going to find it really, really cool as well. So, even if it's a share of an article or a video and say, "Hey, thought you guys would like this," or "I really love this," or "Here's my takeaway," something like that. Again, it helps amplify that other message, but it also kind of puts you in the mix as well. And people might start thinking, "Oh, this is what they like too."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really cool that you've been sharing all those job postings, because first, it's such an important time with just the amount of people who have been furloughed or laid off, or the people who have lost their jobs, that you're offering this kind of refreshing, I would say, component of what the industry is going through right now. But you're not applying for those jobs, right? You're not hiring for those jobs. You don't work for those companies. They might be clients of yours. They might be prospective clients of yours. They might not never be clients of yours, right? But it's something that you have seen that you can do to share with your network that will help somebody else who's in that position.
Exactly. And, you mentioned kind of the long-term piece of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if ultimately that helps me, make a connection at that organization, if I don't have one already, that's okay. Right. I mean, that's a good thing. But I think also it's not just about hitting the share button and walking away. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you can make a little comment about it, like I know there's been some of those posts that have been places that I've worked with. So I can say firsthand, this is a really cool team. This is a great organization, and as you develop your thought leaderness and you develop your voice, that's going to carry some weight as well. Right. When you say that and now you're the one advocating for that organization, that's going to kind of stick in people's minds as well.
100%. Yeah.
I think this also kind of leads into the next piece, which is using your network to help the needs of others. And we heard recently on a podcast that helping is the new marketing, and I love that phrase. I mean, I think I've heard different iterations of that before, but when you can help someone else and you are the person doing that, then people are going to look favorably on you as well, right? Again, not right away will that bring you some ROI when it comes to getting a job, but this is all about building relationships and building up your voice and helping to amplify those other voices. So as you're amplifying other voices, you're also saying, hey, I'm here, I'm part of the mix.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really looking at what can you do to show that you are there to help, right? And ideally, most of these are not going to be incredibly time consuming, but the value and really the return on the time that you are putting into it is going to pay dividends. So this is when we talk about, I would say, making deposits into your networking bank account, and you have to make a disproportionate amount of deposits in order to make a withdrawal. And these deposits are things like amplifying other voices or using your network to help the needs of others. And a withdrawal might be applying for a job. It might be, reaching out, to a potential client to try to get a sales call. It could be wanting to work with a partner or vendor to be able to get the best, the best deal or the best agreement, to move forward to work with them. Could be any of those. And those withdrawals should really only come after you have made ample deposits to prove that worth of, reaching out to apply for that job or, reaching out to make that sales call. Otherwise, you're just going to be a salesperson. Right. And how many connection requests, Matt, have you gotten on LinkedIn from people who do not care about amplifying your voice? They want to amplify their own, and they just want to sell you something.
Too many to count.
Yeah.
Too many to count. I have probably rejected more LinkedIn requests in the last couple of months than I ever have in the past. And I know people out there, they're hungry, they want to connect, but to me, there's still a right way to do it, right? If you don't know me, and if you don't even know somebody that I'm connected with, if you just say, hey, something in your profile looked interesting to me, I thought you had a cool title of your book, I'd love to connect. I'm all about it. Great, fantastic. Don't follow that up with, I'm a publisher, and for your next book, I'd like to publish, your next book. Seriously, okay, I'm not going to probably, accept that request. So think about the relationship first and the potential outcome or the benefit to you a little bit later. And I think that really gets us into the last one, where altruism is more powerful than self-promotion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing good work for others is better than trying to promote yourself.
Yeah. I wanted to share just one example of a LinkedIn request I got yesterday, and I'll just hold it up quickly to show the request. So I live in Chicago, Illinois, and this request had a message that said, hi. First, it didn't even say hi Josh, or hi Joshua. It was clearly a copy and paste. I noticed your profile and wanted to connect. I'm the owner of Bark Industries Dog Walking and Pet Sitting Chicago. By the way, I don't have any pets. I'm always looking to learn and grow by networking. If you need reliable dog walking or pet sitting services, please let me know. Your first walk is free. And then the link to his website. And I saw that and just think, like, this is such a stale, very vague connection request. I got one a couple of months ago that said, hello, Joshua. As I'm sure you've noticed, these are interesting times. Did not read further. If you're going to connect with me on LinkedIn, first, please do. Everyone who's on here, if we're not connected already, definitely let's connect. But don't send me a message saying, you're sure I've noticed these are interesting times.
Right.
Yes, I've noticed.
Even if you've hated the webinar, please connect.
Right.
Please
exactly.
connect. Yeah.
And if that's the case, please let us know what we could have done to
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, altruism is more powerful than self-promotion. And I think this is just one of the biggest themes of all of this with networking, in terms of making these deposits into your networking bank account or sharing other people's content to show that you are taking an interest in what they are putting out there, what they are posting, and what they're doing in real life that is making it to online networking, which is how we're able to connect right now. And it's really about that service to not just your network, but to your industry, right? And showing that you want to be part of the success of it, and making that through the content that you post, reflecting that you are here to help in any way possible, right? With your personal brand, with your niche of, even if it's just sharing an article and something really interesting that you thought about it, tag the author in it. I did this a few days ago. I got the latest issue of Fun World in the mail, and I looked at it and I see tips to optimize a LinkedIn profile, page 103. I thought it was so interesting and very applicable to a lot of the things that we're talking about here. Took a picture of the article, posted it on LinkedIn, and I tagged the author and the two people that she interviewed for it. And all three of them shared the post and thanked me for sharing it. All I did was, read the article. I enjoyed it and then posted it with my network. I didn't write the article. I didn't do the interview. I didn't get paid for any of that. I just wanted to show that everyone needs to read this article because of the reasons why I found it to be beneficial.
And I think one of the things that I hope you take out of this part specifically is that this is not something that is COVID dependent, right? This is not just something to do during the pandemic. These concepts, especially helping to amplify other people's voices, is something that can be used all the time. As Josh likes to say, it's evergreen, right? We can do these things all the time. You know, I think about when IAPA was happening, and I would say, oh my gosh, Josh is doing this session. I gotta tell people about it, right? Or my friend Sean McKeough or Katie Bruno, they're doing these sessions. I gotta let people know that that other people are doing these sessions, because they're gonna be a great message. I know they are, because I know the people, and now I'm able to share that. So we can still do that in person. This doesn't have to just be something we're talking about with social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So find your voice, use your voice, amplify other voices. None of this will expire when the pandemic is over. These are all things that, like you said, that I like to say, is that it's evergreen and that these should be long lasting. So
Absolutely.
we have about 11 minutes or so left.
Actually, I wanted to share one last thing.
Yes.
So we had a little assignment after each one of the find your voice, use your voice. I want to make a suggestion or assignment or a challenge that when this webinar is over, find something to help amplify somebody else. Maybe it was somebody that you met on this webinar and you think they're doing something really, really cool. Amplify that, share it out. If it's a video, if it's an article, whatever it is, use your voice to amplify that for somebody else, and just try it out. If you haven't done it before, just give it a try. So that's my challenge to you after we've gotten through the amplify your voice portion.
So I think that's a perfect segue, because I would like to amplify a voice right now. So I'll take the the lead charge on this. I'm going
Go for it.
to stop sharing the screen, and Charlie Wickham, who I know is on the webinar now, feel free to unmute, because there's something that he's doing that's very cool that completely ties in with all of this. And he's doing research on networking, kind of this before and after. And he's got a survey that we'd like to send out to all of you. I'll post the link in the chat. I think he did earlier. But Charlie, if you want to take maybe 45 seconds to a minute or so and let us know what you're working on.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a student at Iowa State University. I'm currently doing a master's in industrial design. So we're doing a series of projects researching different aspects of the pandemic and how it's affected things, and coming up with design interventions to help address this. So for this current project, I'm looking at networking and how it's changed, especially in this industry that we are normally so connected and doing so many in-person events throughout the year. With suddenly those gone, I want to try to understand how we've shifted to the virtual space. What are the things that we've lost in that transition, but also we've gained some things too, in making things more accessible. So it's a quick survey that Josh helped out by hosting it through the Back Looper service. So if you all have a chance after this talk, please do the survey, and that'll help us see what's out there and what's been done and how we can do networking better, not only during the pandemic, but after the pandemic is over, what we can learn and take away from this. It's anonymous, and the results and what comes out of this sort of design intervention will be shared between myself and Josh to try to get back to you and the industry as a whole to benefit from this research.
Awesome. I just posted that link in the chat just about a minute or so ago, and it's not too long. It should just take you a few minutes, but definitely definitely go through it and check it out. Hopefully, everyone on here is able to take it. So I'm going to share my screen again, because we've got about 8 minutes or so. We want to make sure that we wrap up on time here, but we have something really cool that we now want to share with everybody that really ties in nicely with networking and being able to help out. And it's an initiative that Matt and I have put together for AttractionPros. So with your permission, can we share the details of the new program that we are developing, or that we have available? Please let us know in the chat with just a yes or a no if you don't want to hear it. Oh, actually, Adrian made a good point. Matt, how long is the fire story? Do we have time for that?
So it's actually pretty quick. So when I was in, I think like a sophomore in high school, I played football, and I was the middle inside linebacker, and I got to call the defensive plays. So one of our plays was, if we wanted to blitz, it was called a fire. And so I would call a 52 fire, but I would say it like fire. That's how I'd say it in the huddle. And one of my coaches got wind of that. And this is a coach who had some other issues. But anyway, he would grab my face mask and he'd say fire, and I'd say fire. And then he'd grab my face mask and give him a headbutt on my on my helmet with his bare head. But anyway, so that just reminds me to keep using my passion, keep using the fire that's inside of me to keep going forward.
Awesome. Love it. So with many yeses that we got in, including one very enthusiastic one from Andy. Thank you for that. We are putting together something that this is very much geared towards those who I know we have some students on the call, or maybe some recent grads, or maybe some of those who are, I would say, trying to get their foot in the door in the industry. Certainly not exclusive to being a student or a recent grad, but maybe if you are, furloughed or laid off at this time, or kind of looking to getting your feet back going and back in the door in the industry, we are putting together something that we can do, that we can help. But we also need help. If you're a fan of the Attraction Pros podcast, we thank you so much, or we thank you so much for attending the webinar. And if you've seen any of the articles that we post on the website or any of the other content that we've done, last week we just released the most comprehensive content that we have put out there, and we are exerting a lot of time and energy, which we love doing it, but we want to make sure we can include others in it as well, and to be able to help this passion project, if you will, continue to grow and develop. So we are officially announcing right here at this moment the Attraction Pros Mentorship Internship. It is a little bit of both, because that's very much the exchange of value, the exchange of resources that is available. And like I said, designed specifically for young professionals in the industry who are looking to develop, network, and grow within the industry. This is not geographically exclusive. It's not, experience-based, exclusivity. But if you are looking to grow in the industry, that's who, you are who we want to be speaking to, and hopefully to gain interest in this type of program. So, Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you'll get as an Attraction Pros intern?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, you get to work with Josh and I, and working with Josh for the last 3 or something years has been the thrill of my life. So that in and of itself is super fun. But you'll also get some one-on-one networking assistance. So we will open up our LinkedIn profiles, if you will, and connect you with anybody that you want to get connected with. Josh and I have been in this industry for a long time. We've got some great career stories, but also we want to help you grow and develop in your career. So if there's things that we can help you as far as career development, whether it's your resume or you're doing a mock interview or those kind of things, we're more than happy to help out with that. Tools to get a step ahead for potential job opportunities, and this could again just be kind of focusing on what we see as things that you could do to kind of get a leg up. But it's also about, having the experience of either working outside of a current job or working outside of being in school that could potentially get you a leg up. Again, kind of career advice that I mentioned already. And then introductions to leaders you're looking to meet. I have to say that doing the podcast has been one of the greatest networking experiments that I've and Josh have embarked on, because when you think about the people that we've been able to have on the podcast that we didn't even know of before, and now these are folks that we can kind of call on at any time, that's a fantastic opportunity. So I'm not saying that everybody should go out and do a podcast, although if that's where you want to use your voice, absolutely use it. We'll help you set up your podcast. But this is what we do say that you'll get is introductions to people that you may want to meet that might help you further on in your career.
Yeah. And if we don't know that person, strong likelihood that we know a person who knows that person, and it's
right.
just a couple of degrees of separation. Like you said, yeah, the podcast has been a huge networking tool that we've been able to do, and we want to now help amplify other voices and really help put that out there. So that is what you will gain from that. And what you would contribute, what we're looking to bring on is someone or multiple people who are able to contribute really in these functions from an administrative standpoint, a marketing standpoint, a communication standpoint, and a content production standpoint. Attraction Pros we want it to be this content machine. We've been putting out, a podcast every single Tuesday for, let's see, tomorrow will be the 167th consecutive week. So we want to make sure we can continue doing that and firing on all cylinders and being able to supply more content for the industry to be able to add value. In particular, these skills right here are not required by any means, but there will be special consideration if you've got talents in graphic design, social media marketing, audio video production, if you're familiar with WordPress and MailChimp, possibly Hootsuite, but that's really easy to train on. And if you have any content marketing experience, which could involve what you're doing now with maybe amplifying other voices and using your LinkedIn page and channel to be able to get your message out to the industry. Like I said, not required, but there will be special consideration given to those skills. Did
I'll
I cover
also,
them all? The
yeah, I
Okay.
just wanted to say real quick about the administrative support. One of the things that we do, obviously, when it comes to getting our guests, is we have to, find them, make contact, that kind of thing. I think about the ambassadors at the IAPA conference, where they get these, the direct line to these folks. So if you are someone who is okay reaching out to folks like that and being sort of a go-between and helping schedule guests, that could be a great way to get to know different people just on a professional level. Hey, I'm scheduling this for AttractionPros, and you do a good job there, and then they're going to remember you for your other things. So just another thought about some of the things that we might need people to do.
Totally. Yeah. If you are interested, and I know we're wrapping up right now, but our main email address is attractionpros@gmail.com. So just remember, it's Attraction Pros, not Attractions Pro or Attraction dash or hyphen anything. All one word, attractionpros@gmail.com. If you are interested, or if you know someone who is interested, then please, send this out, send them our way, email us with an introduction, whatever it is. We are looking to grow and extend this brand as Attraction Pros as a valuable tool and a valuable resource for the industry.
So there was a question that came in from Pamela. I was responding, but I'm going to say it here now. She said, are soft skills more important than the hard skills? And I would say, absolutely. We are looking for people who are passionate. We're looking for people who, want to do great things in this industry. And, like Josh said, a lot of these things are pretty easy for us to teach you how to do. So, if you love what you do, you love the industry, then we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah. With that said, we're now just over the 1 hour mark. Dave asked if you can share it on LinkedIn. Yes, please, Dave. I also follow your themed entertainment jobs board as well. Feel free to share it there too. Definitely feel free to share this anywhere. Like I said, if you know someone. So at this point, we want to thank you all so much for attending the webinar. We're happy to stay for the next few minutes or so if you have any questions, or if you wanted to chat whatsoever. Other than that, thanks so much for attending. And well, as you know, we are all Attraction Pros.